this one stunned me yesterday, and let me give you the background on this, because we've always known there was not a proper relationship between Brian Flores and Tua Tagovailoa. And I don't mean to imply it was improper. I just mean it wasn't right. It didn't work.
Right.
It wasn't in
built
the
for
cards.
success.
Flores didn't want him.
Yeah.
3 years ago, right now, the rumors were at a fever pitch that the Dolphins were going to trade for Deshaun Watson, and Tua knew it. And I remember Tua wasn't a captain in 2021. Second year on the team, unquestioned starting quarterback, he's not a captain. He'd been voted a captain. He said, no, I don't want it. It was miserable for him at that time, and it hovered over him until after the trade deadline. And after the trade deadline, lo and behold, he started playing better because he knew that this fixation on Deshaun Watson was over, at least for the rest of the season. So there was always something there. And last year when Tua was interviewed by Michael Smith for one of the Sunday night games that featured Miami, probably Miami, Philadelphia, there was a portion of the interview where Tua talks about how he can be himself now. And there was no negativity in it.
Yeah.
It was just,
right.
I can be myself. I don't have to be somebody else. I don't have to just please everybody all the time. I don't have to lead in a way that I'm not comfortable. I can just be myself all the time, and it makes sense. That's who Mike McDaniel is. He wants you to be authentic. With all that said, yesterday, not long after the show ended, some quotes emerged, video and audio of Tua talking to Dan Le Batard and company about Flores and McDaniel. And it's blunt and it's candid, and here it is.
Can you explain to us the difference in practical terms between having a coach who did believe in you the way that he did and the difference between that and what was happening with Flores?
Yeah. Well, to put it in simplest terms, if you woke up every morning and I told you you sucked at what you did, that you don't belong doing what you do, that you shouldn't be here, that this guy should be here, that you haven't earned this right, and then you have somebody else come in and tell you, dude, you are the best fit for this. Like, you are accurate, you are the best whatever, you are this, you are that. Like, how would it make you feel listening to one or the other? You see what I'm saying? And then you hear it, regardless of what it is, the good or the bad, and you hear it more and more, you start to actually believe that. I don't care who you are. You could be the president of the United States. You have a terrible person that's telling you things that you don't want to hear, or that you probably shouldn't be hearing. You're going to start to believe that about yourself. And so that's sort of like what ended up happening. And it was, I mean, it's basically been, 2 years of training that out of not just me, but, a couple of the guys as well that have been here since my rookie year all the way till now.
Wow. He didn't call Brian Flores a terrible person, but he did call Brian Flores a terrible person. He didn't directly say it, but in the context, it was obvious. As he's comparing and contrasting Flores and McDaniel, he believes Brian Flores is a terrible person. And Chris, I ask you this. Is it as simple as Flores was acting like Belichick? Is that what it is?
Well, it's not that totally. Now, of course, that's the school of thought he came from, right? And he has a vision of what he thinks a team should be. And he's, of course, coming from a place where it's the greatest quarterback of all time, and he's seeing how he acts and how he
got treated that way.
And got treated that way, right? And, I mean, of course, I got treated that way a little bit with John Gruden. And, my dad got treated that way with Bill Parcells. A lot of people would tell you, no, that's football, right? I mean, I don't know. I never had a coach just go, oh, you're so awesome. I love you. You're the best. Oh, my gosh. Oh, I just can't get over it. You're so great. I mean, that's not getting the best out of anybody. That's making you feel warm and cozy. Now, you all want a little bit of confidence and something to make sure the guy believes in you, right? And I think that's what Tua is trying to explain here, is that it obviously must have crossed the line. Right, it crossed the line into where he felt like it wasn't motivating me or making me angry to be better. Instead, it seemed like it was beating him down and making him, less apt to work or get better or be a leader in that way. And I think that Flores was probably like, what? I've never had a guy do this before. What is this? Usually the guys I talk like this are like, they fight back and go, hey, screw you, Coach Beefalo. I'm going to show you how good I am. Right? Now, he's from the Belichick school, like you're alluding to. There's no doubt about that. So that's in him, but it's in him naturally anyways, right? So that's where, when I first heard this and people were like, oh, Tua said he was a bad person. All right, it made me feel better when I did watch this and see this, that he didn't actually say that. Yeah, he kind of references it, that he doesn't make him feel good, but he doesn't get into personal stuff or anything like that. And that when I first...
Terrible person is a tough label, and terrible person is the label that he put on him.
Yeah. That's where it crossed the line, right? That's where it crosses the line of where you can go into, hey, he's telling me this and he's telling me that, and he's not making me feel good about football. But when you get into terrible person, no, this is professional sports. This is, you don't know what he is as a person off the field. You're crossing the line there. That's where you can't go. Brian Flores is a good husband, good father. That's all he's about, is his work and all that. He's as tough and as direct as you can be as a human being, right? I got to work with him in New England. That's the way he is. He grew up in the toughest part of Brooklyn, so there's no nonsense or sugarcoating anything with Brian Flores, no matter what. I'm sure he's kind of like that on Christmas Day with his kids. There ain't a whole lot of like jolly kissing, hugging. That's not who he is. So, yeah, that's where I didn't like that aspect of it. But nonetheless, you could tell that Tua was very uncomfortable under Brian Flores, and you and I both knew that that was the case anyways.
Anybody who watches The Bear, which is one of the great shows ever made, Carmy, the main character, when he's working in New York at a restaurant, he's got a guy hovering over him all the time saying all that stuff. Worse than what Tua was recounting about Brian Flores. But you're constantly hearing what a piece of crap you are, how you suck, you should be dead, all this stuff. And the person doing it would say the goal is to make you better, but it also leaves a hell of a scar emotionally that does not go away anytime soon.
Yeah.
If you watch The Bear, you know that. But the problem is, Carmy and the Bear ends up acting the same damn way. I don't think Tua is treating other people that way. You can go two different ways when you're subjected to that. You can think that's the way you're supposed to be in certain circumstances, or you can never be like that because it's so revolting to you that you were treated that way. You're never going to subject anyone else to that kind of behavior. But in that comment, he said someone else should be here. This is the whole, I'm looking at it right here.
Right.
This guy should be here. That's the Deshaun Watson thing from 3 years ago, without question.
Right.
Because he would have been there. Remember, Stephen Ross, the owner of the team, wanted all the civil lawsuits arising from the allegations of sexual misconduct at the massage therapy sessions to be settled before the trade would happen. And that was the thing that couldn't occur and didn't occur, so the trade didn't happen before the deadline in 2021, or he would have been there. He would have been there. It reached kind of a boiling point right before the season started. It hovered all year, and then again right before the trade deadline, it almost happened again. So Watson was the guy that Flores wanted, and apparently he was being very candid with Tua about that.
Well, yeah, obviously, right? Now, where I will defend Tua and all that, right, do I think that it crosses the line for Brian Flores to tell, your quarterback or somebody there you suck and you shouldn't be there? Yeah, I think that crosses the line. I honestly have a hard time even picturing Brian Flores saying that to a you suck. I don't know. That seems to be, a little aggressive. And if that was the case, I would say I'm 100% here to say that I think that crosses a line. That does. And that you shouldn't say that as a head coach to a young quarterback or a young player in general who's growing and figuring things out, right? But I think between the mold of the player wasn't made for Brian Flores, right? There was the Justin Herbert, there was the Jordan Love out there that people were all going, ooh, I think there's better top-end potential with those guys. He believed in that mold of a Brady, bigger type of quarterback. He believed in a quarterback that was tough, a tough SOB who could take verbal abuse, but turn that around and motivate himself and the team and do that and work tirelessly, right? Now, Tua is a guy that is self-proclaimed. He didn't work that very hard early in his career. He said that. I don't think I was doing the things to prepare the right way. So I'm sure that wasn't helping his case with Brian Flores, too, coming away from Tom Brady, who he was like, wait, Brady's a psycho. He's doing everything all the time. He's in every meeting room. He's all over it all together. So I think there's a lot of that there probably, too. But at the end of the day, I mean, right now, whether you call somebody a terrible person, that crosses the line. But I will say, Brian Flores saying that to Tua, it does cross the line too. I think between player and coach, proper conduct there with that type of talk and phrases for sure.
And I think about if you're into a situation and you hate hearing that, you hate being around it, you're not going to show up early and stay late. You're going to be at the facility as little as possible to be subjected to that behavior and those messages as little as possible. And, a good coach coaxes the top performance out of someone and figures out the old Jimmy Johnson approach. You have a different way with every guy. You have to understand what it takes to press this guy's buttons, that guy's buttons, that guy's buttons. And that's the art and that's the science of being a good coach. You can't just treat everyone the same way because some people aren't going to respond the same way. Tua didn't respond the same way Tom Brady did. We talked last week about this alternate universe where Aaron Rodgers is with the New England Patriots. Would Bill Belichick have treated Rodgers the way he treated Brady? Probably not, if Rodgers wouldn't have taken it well, because Belichick's going to recognize I've got this all-time great talent. I'm not going to ruin him. I'm going to work with him and around him to get the most out of him. How do I get the most out of this guy? What do I say? What do I do? When do I say it? When do I do it? When do I make this move? When do I make that move? That's all part of the challenge of being a great coach. You can't just say, I'm going to treat everybody the same way. You can't. It's not going to work. And it may have been that simple. And all these guys that leave Belichick, I'm going to be my own man, they don't realize that just being around him for 15 years, and I think that's how long Flores was there, 15 years.
Right.
Matt Patricia before that, 15 years. You don't realize how much you're like the guy until you're out in the wild with the normal humans.
No, I think that's fair. Yeah, I think there's two parts to that aspect, right? Not only does Belichick and whoever you're working for rub off on you to a degree. You're with them every day. You're seeing what they do, how they're successful, their attitude in which they treat certain situations. So you start to copy that, right? But that, right? Also within that is Belichick, right? He gets coaches that are like him, right? That's what happens too, right? Shanahan and McDaniel are both, quirky, funny, this play, right? So that's usually what happens at a coaching tree anyways. You end up getting human beings that fit what you think is right for your football team and that you think you can coexist with as a coach. So that's what does happen, certainly, right? And that's where it's tough for coaches when they come from a coaching tree there, and it's tough for a guy like Brian Flores, who I think in his old school Northeast ways, he's probably going, wait, when I've done this to other people in the past, they go back and go, screw you, I'm going to show you how good I am. That was the approach I took with Gruden. Like when Gruden used to say crappy things to me and he would be giving me the cold shoulder, damn, I was like the opposite. I was like, I'm going to get there earlier today. I'm going to make practice uncomfortable today being so good, and I'm going to make him have to look me in the eye and go, damn, you were good today, and do that, right? That's usually the quarterback mentality of, to lead the team and do that. And I think that's where Flores was a little bit like, wait, I don't see this with Tua, and that's where, the rubber met the road.
How did you avoid ever picking Gruden up and throwing him through a wall? Because he could basically fit in your pocket.
Well, I don't know. I have too much respect for elders and coaches and anything like that to ever cross the line.
Yeah. Respect for elders, ass.
But I just never went that way. And I grew up that the head coach is like we talk about. He's the general. You listen to him. You take what he's going to say, you try to apply it, you try to get better, whatever, negative, positive, whatever it is. And I always just tried to turn it into a positive that way. And I think that's the way Brady probably worked, right? I know that's the way my father worked to a degree, right? A lot of quarterbacks, that was the old school way, and I think that's what Brian Flores has. But nonetheless, the Tua and the presidential United States, if you have a terrible person telling you things you don't want to hear and all that quote, that crossed the line too. That's wrong. And that's wrong. And it goes under the personal side of things, which is even worse than the football professional coaching mean talk, in my opinion.
And it wasn't directly
I know.
Brian
That's where
Flores
it's
is
slick.
a terrible person.
I
But the
literally am
context,
typing. Yes, I'm
it's
typing
so
and you're going, wait,
clear.
did I miss this? He didn't directly say it. And they were like, no, on this part. And I was like, oh, yeah, he said it in that part. Right.
It's the actual context
Right.
where he's comparing and contrasting the two, and he's giving you an example. You could be the President of the United States. If you have a terrible person telling you things you don't want to hear or that you shouldn't be hearing, you're going to start to believe that about yourself. It's unmistakable in context that he's saying it without directly putting the tag on him. He's putting the tag without putting the tag.
Yes, that's where I don't love that. Right, I don't. And the more I, sit here and think about it, just call him a terrible person. Just do it. Just come out and say it. Now, I like Tua in the fact that he's a little chippier and he ain't afraid to talk and do all that too. But at the same time,
$53 million a year.
Well,
$53 million a year activates a lot of stuff.
Yes, but at the same time, I will say, like, do I find him a little hypocritical? I absolutely do. I do. I mean, you know it. We've talked about it before. Right? He doesn't like to be trolled, but he'll support people who troll him in his name.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And stuff like that I don't love, and I don't love this either. It's a distraction, and it's a little bit of a low blow to a coach in the NFL who had success at that team and went 10-6 in 2 years in a row. And even when they were pushing him out the door, the owner was still going, you know what? I think I'm going to push the quarterback out the door and get Sean Payton and Tom Brady here too.
It was going to be both.
Right. So,
Flores got fired,
right,
but Tua was out too.
Right.
It was going to be Peyton and Brady.
Right.
That's right.
So this is more than just Brian Flores having questions about Tua. It was an organizational thing, and we know it was even going into this year that it was an organizational thing of, do we keep Tua long term? Is this really the answer? And as you've heard me say and what I've said, that's where, hey, Tua's going to be under the microscope. He's had a lot of good, play, certainly, but he's paid a lot of money. They're on a good team. The offense is amazing. And what I always say is, he's being paid a lot of money, but at the same time, he's one of the biggest questions we have about their team in a big football game. And that's very rare that you say that about the guy who makes the most money on the football team.
Okay, you have a chance to win $1 million in the NBC sweepstakes on Yahoo Fantasy. Just download the redesigned Yahoo Fantasy app or go to NBCSports.com/fantasymillion for additional details. What are you waiting for?
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.